Good afternoon. I think it's noon. Welcome to Food for Thought, a partnership with the Frist Art Museum and Vanderbilt University. My name is Gail Carr-Williams, and on behalf of Vanderbilt University, welcome. I'm so glad to have all of you here. This is the third of a three-part series of having good lunchtime conversations about exhibits here at the Frist Art Museum. We are so lucky in Nashville to have the Frist Art Museum. Isn't it a magnificent place? And it would not be what it is without the extraordinary leadership of Susan Edwards. What a wonderful director we have here of the Frist Art Museum. Way to go, Susan. Good year. Thank you. Thank you for partnering with us here. So it's the holiday season. And I'll tell you what, I looked in that gift shop for about 5 minutes today, and I almost didn't get back to get your name tags for you because there were some extraordinary things that I kept touching and wanting to pick up. So as you leave here, make certain you just take an opportunity to look in there. You find those really great, unique gifts that you've been sort of looking for online, but they're actually right here at the Frist Art Museum. So again, thank you for being here. And at this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague, my friend, and my co-conspirator in all this, Ann Henderson, who's the Director of Education here at the Frist Art Museum. Ann, it's always a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for this. And Ann will be moderating the panel and taking it from here. So everyone have a happy, warm holiday season, and thanks for joining us and being a part of Food for Thought. Thank you.
So thank you to Gail Carr-Williams. She is a wonderful collaborator and co-conspirator. We are most grateful to her enthusiasm and support for offering this program annually. And so we look forward to it so much as an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into our exhibitions. And so as Gail said, this is the third one of our Food for Thought series this year. And we've looked in the past at our North Nashville murals. We've looked at our Native Women exhibition, and now today we will look at Eric Carle. And our wonderful panelists are here to really talk about the power of the visual arts, creativity, and literacy. So we are thrilled to have a diverse audience here today. We had different ages here, and we're so thrilled with that. The Frist Art Museum would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the Cherokee and Shawnee Native peoples and elders who once called this land we are standing on their homeland. We also acknowledge and offer deep gratitude to the ancestral land and water that supports us. I'm very grateful to our panelists, so I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves as they speak, but I will introduce who they are in order. Trinita Kennedy, who is our curator, one of our curators here at the Frist Art Museum, and is our on-site curator of the Eric Carle exhibition for the Very Hungry Caterpillar, celebrating 50 years. I got the title out of order, but you got the idea to do that. And then we welcome Justine Briere. She's lecturer at Vanderbilt University Peabody College in the Department of Teaching and Learning. She's going to give us a little insight into kind of the bigger pictures of current practices within education, integrated arts, literacy, and early childhood. So all of that wrapped up into 10 minutes. She's going to do beautiful. Followed by Jeff Smith, who is our director here at Metro Nashville Public Schools, Director of Visual and Performing Arts. And he will drill down for us a little bit more into the implications of integrated arts and literacy into the classroom and the Metro school system here, as well as highlighting for us a partnership that the Frist Art Museum has with Metro Public Schools for professional development for art educators. So with that said, I'm going to join them and turn it over to them. Thank you all for being here.
All right, so yes, my name is Trinita Kennedy, and I am the curator at the Frist in charge of our presentation of the Eric Carle exhibition. And so I'm going to introduce Eric Carle, the artist and writer, and then also talk about our approach to this exhibition. So this is the first major show that we've ever done that's geared towards younger visitors. So the occasion for the exhibition is the 50th anniversary of The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which is one of the most popular children's books of all time. The book was published in 1969 and has since sold 50 million copies, so that's about one copy every 30 seconds somewhere in the world. 2019 is also Eric Carle's 90th birthday. So we are really celebrating his art and his life in this exhibition. There are more than 100 original illustrations for his books upstairs. In addition to The Very Hungry Caterpillar, there are 22 other titles represented in the show. The 50th anniversary edition comes with an afterword by Dolly Parton. Nashville is the only city in America that's presenting this exhibition, and we feel that that's a really wonderful tie. I encourage you, if you get a chance, to read her comments on The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Copies of the book are available in the galleries as well as the bookshop. So the exhibition really tells the story of how Eric Carle became one of the most beloved illustrators in the world. And the story begins when he's a child. Here we see him with his parents, actually on a vacation in the Black Forest. So Eric Carle was born in 1929 in Syracuse, New York. But when he was 6 years old in 1935, his parents decided to return home to Germany. His mother was homesick, and they moved to be near their extended family in Stuttgart, Germany. Eric Carle credits his mother with encouraging him to be an artist and really fostering his interest. And then his father is the one he credits with encouraging him to love nature. So every Saturday and Sunday morning they would go for a walk in the woods or in a meadow, and they would often talk about animals and observe even the tiniest creatures. Eric Carle had a wonderful experience in kindergarten in America, but then he found schooling in Nazi Germany to be rather gray and dismal. He struggled in school, but for him, art was always kind of a refuge. So we see him here with a German class. He went to art school in Stuttgart, and then when he was finished, he moved to New York. So he had trained to be a graphic designer, and throughout the 1950s and into the 1960s, he worked in graphic design and advertising in New York. On the right is a pharmaceutical ad he did in the 1960s, and you can see that it's a lobster in a collage technique. And this advertisement caught the eye of Bill Martin Jr., a noted children's book author who invited Eric Carle to illustrate his next book, which was Brown Bear, What Do You See? So this is 1967. Eric Carle was still working in advertising at the time. He did the illustrations over one weekend. He decided that he loved children's books, and in 1968 he published 1, 2, 3 to the Zoo, a counting book. And so this is the first book that he does both the words and the illustrations. Our exhibition really spans Eric Carle's entire career, from Brown Bear all the way to his most recent book, which is The Nonsense Show. I think you can see in Eric Carle's work the importance of graphic design. So he knows the power of an image and is very selective with the words. He actually takes sometimes as much as a year to develop a story and the images, and he really kind of boils it down till the words are almost like poetry. So I wanted to go ahead and show this video of Eric Carle reflecting on 50 years of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. This book really is his most popular and the one that has sold the most copies.
I'm Eric Carl, the creator of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I made The Very Hungry Caterpillar 50 years ago, and altogether I've created 70 picture books for children. The important part of doing books for children, or any books really, is the idea. Where does the idea come from? In case of the caterpillar, I had an idea about a worm. So that's the beginning of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Here is a mini size. Look at that, a gigantic one. The 50th anniversary is printed on gold. This book has been done in 62 languages. I think the children are the ones who have kept it in the market for 50 years. So it has something to do with the love of something, and that makes me feel very good. My friends and publishers and editors have been asking ourselves why The Very Hungry Caterpillar is so very successful. It took me a long time, but I think it is a book of hope. Children need hope. You little insignificant caterpillar can grow up into a beautiful butterfly and fly into the world with your talent. Will I ever be able to do that? Yes, you will. I think that is the appeal of that book. Well, I should know. I did the book after all.
All right, so Eric Carle's books are often among the very first ones that parents read to their children. And then Eric Carle's goal with his books is really to make children comfortable with them before they ever enter kindergarten. And so these books often have kind of an enduring life with children because then teachers pick up the books and use them in the classroom. Each book does have some kind of educational concept embedded within it, and sometimes there's more than one. So with The Very Hungry Caterpillar, for example, you learn about night and day, numbers, healthy food versus junk food, party food, whatever you want to call it. And each of his books has something special and that is quite memorable. So with The Very Hungry Caterpillar, you find these shortened pages and also the little holes that the caterpillar makes in the book. It's the perfect size for little fingers to kind of poke through. And so reading becomes a tactile experience for them with this book. Eric Carle often says that he makes books that are toys and toys that are books. In his books, there's also usually some kind of journey. So with The Very Hungry Caterpillar, you go from egg to caterpillar to butterfly, and it's this kind of glorious finale. He never writes the end at the end of his books because often, if you think about it really, this is a new beginning, right, for the caterpillar. So in 2002, the Eric Carle Museum for Picture Book Art opened in Amherst, Massachusetts. Eric and his wife Barbara founded the museum near their home in western Massachusetts. And this is where our exhibition comes from. And we work very closely with their staff on all of our plans for the exhibition. In February, I went and spent a few days there and really learned from their many different departments about how to do an exhibition like this that's really focused on younger visitors. So this was our very first visitor to the exhibition, so a pre-reader, and she's actually just visited the bookshop as well and found a copy of The Very Hungry Caterpillar in her size. So in our presentation of the exhibition, we really wanted to make it an engaging and inviting experience for young visitors. The graphics are big and bold and colorful. We have an arched entrance that's fun to go through. There's graphics all over the walls, down low on the floor. At the entrance, the visitors can pick up a family guide. So recent studies have shown that people who visit museums as adults often did so with their families. In addition to field trips, we're really becoming more and more aware of the importance of family visits to museums. So we have the family guide in both English and Spanish. There's 4 different activities that include counting, close visual looking, and then it finishes with activities that you can do together at home. So there's a long list of suggested activities so that the experience of the exhibition continues after you leave the museum. So there you can see that we've actually hung the art a little bit lower. It's a few inches below normal. We have created little book nooks within the exhibition. So they're cozy places where families can sit down and read with their children. They're surrounded by Eric Carle's art. We have made an effort to offer copies of the books in world languages other than English. So there's a copy of every book in English, but we've also looked at what the languages are that are spoken here in Nashville. So we have Farsi and Vietnamese and Kurdish. Here we have a French very hungry caterpillar. In the exhibition, there's a section that teaches you how Eric Carle does his art. So all of his illustrations are collages. He uses very basic materials of paper and brushes and paint. And children like to see how he does it because it's actually very simple. And when a child says to him, "I could do what you're doing," he says, "Of course you can." And that's something that I think really makes his art very accessible. The exhibition includes kind of a virtual story time with Eric Carle. So you hear him reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and he has this very soothing voice. This is Lila, another young visitor. She's 2.5. So the exhibition concludes with The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and within that section we have an opportunity for a child to step up in front of the butterfly. And this is an opportunity not only for a family to make a memory by taking a photograph, but also for a child to identify with the main character in the story. We offer Family Mondays. This photo was actually taken just yesterday. Story time in the galleries. Yesterday the story was The Very Hungry Caterpillar. You can see that on the right we have a sign language interpreter, and on the left a Spanish language translator. We encourage all of our visitors to stop by ArtQuest during their time here, and there's, I think, 7 different stations where visitors can really think about the techniques that Eric Carle uses and use them creatively. Oops, my last slide is not there. But I think I had some children, again, at story time with a book by Eric Carle. And really with this exhibition, we are foregrounding the importance of art in learning to read. And I think for me, one of the kind of the big ideas is that one of the fundamental purposes of art is really to help people to learn and to think critically. So with this exhibition, we're fostering visual literacy. And I see us as really supporting what is going on in the schools and in libraries and also with families.
Thank you, Trinita. So next up, Justine Briere. So we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Justine, and I am from Canada. I went to the University of Toronto and obtained my PhD there, and when I finished, my husband told me that Nashville was warm and that we should move here. He has been paying for that for the last 4 years. The year we moved here was that year when the ice covered the whole city. So I'm here now, and I work at Vanderbilt University at Peabody. I'm a lecturer there in the Department of Teaching and Learning, and I instruct reading education, arts education, and reading and writing theory. So I'm busy over there with lots of adult students, and we have some fun. I also make puppets. So right here is this is my very first puppet that I ever made. His name is Kevin. He's 14 years old. And I started making puppets, and I can kind of connect to Eric Carle. I watched an interview once where he said that when he's creating, he's happy, and he's not really creating for anyone. He's creating for the passion and for the joy of creating, and that's what artists do. And that's the way I feel when I make puppets, strangely. And I started making these puppets as an aid to the curriculum. The puppets are, they're my companion to texts that I share with students. They're my companion to questioning. They're my companion to helping students who are having a little bit of trouble understanding a concept. The puppet shares an alternate view. And so I use these puppets as facilitators in the classroom. Many times as a teacher, you don't have the luxury of having a co-teacher in the classroom, but that has never happened to me because I have all of my puppets. And so I lead these workshops with my students and with people from the community, and these are all puppets that students have made with me. And now they're using them in their classrooms too, so that's one of the things that I do at Vanderbilt in my arts education course. Another thing that I'm passionate about is using the arts and technology together. So thinking about multimodal learning and how we might use a narrative or storytelling to help children see that there are multiple ways of authoring. So there's a view of writing as something where you have to have a pen in your paper. And now we're expanding on that view of writing to think about authoring as something where even the thoughts that you have are evidence of your authoring. And in this video that I'm about to show you, students at the end of the year in my class we used a green screen for them to talk to themselves about what they had learned that year in school.
Hi, Anna. You had a really good year in second grade. This year you made so many new friends. You made many, many books and met an amazing teacher. You won first place in cross country. Your favorite subject was writing. Do you remember that day that you went to Canada? I'm really proud of your hard work. I know next year it will be awesome for you. Keep working hard. You are so smart.
Okay, so trying to find ways that we can use technology for children to explore their own voice, for them to think about multiple perspectives and other narratives that they might have not thought of before. And I'll share with you now a little bit about what I've done with some of Eric Carle's work. In Ontario, in Canada, I taught in kindergarten classrooms, some of which were French-speaking and some of which were English-speaking. And so here you can see an excerpt of the writing that some of the students did in my class. I'll read it to you. On Friday, she ate frozen grapes. On Tuesday, she ate 2 carrots. On Saturday, she ate a big hamburger. She builded a cocoon. Then more than 2 weeks, she stayed there. Then she became a beautiful butterfly. She had red, blue, and purple. I am Olivia. And so we explored a unit on butterflies and on caterpillars, and it came from an inquiry where children were seeing caterpillars on our milkweed plants. And so we followed their inquiry. I made this costume to be a caterpillar. And when students entered my classroom in the morning, I shared the caterpillar story with them from Eric Carle, La chenille qui fait des trous en français, and then in English, the very hungry caterpillar. And I'm about to show a video with you that kind of shares my philosophy as far as arts education goes. Oftentimes in schools, some of you in the audience may have experienced this, where when we are thinking about the life cycle of a caterpillar to a butterfly, we see what teachers normally do, which is they might have you start out with the egg and then draw what happens next, and then show us the butterfly at the end. It's all done paper pencil activities. That's just fine, probably as a starter activity. But with arts education, we want to get children up embodying, and we would like to nudge or heighten the thinking so that children can think about this process in a deeper way. So what you're about to see is, I guess, my shot at helping them to think about the story through embodiment. This means that they're eating the leaf that their mother left them on. Now saying it's almost time for us to go into our Christmas. And this is a giant cocoon that I made out of plastic. The children are making the letter J with their bodies. So we have really big classes. And you're not allowed to wear your shoes in the cocoon. Okay, so it's going from day to night and day to night and day to night. And the children should still be in the letter J. And that week we had done an inquiry, and every child had made their own wings. Nous pouvons voler means now we can fly. Some of the girls were very concerned about how their wings looked. So from here, we flew through the hallways and out into our garden, to where our inquiry began, right to the milkweed plants. And the children pretended to nibble on them. Some of them may have actually eaten them. No children were harmed in the filming of this video. That's about it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Smith. I serve as Director of Visual and Performing Arts. I'm relatively new to Nashville, moved here a year ago from Jacksonville, Florida, which is warmer right now. So I did not, I went to a colder place, but I'm originally from New York, so from the Northeast, and was a music educator for years before I entered the world of nonprofits, and happy to be in here in Nashville. It's such a welcoming, wonderful community. And I have 3 children, so as I share some of these updates and some of the work we're doing and how we work with the Frist Art Museum and others throughout the community, I'm thinking of, when I think of our 86,000 students, I think of what's best for them is what's best for my kids, and what can we do to make sure that every child has access to the best opportunities possible in all of their academic areas. I love this quote, and I'll just read it to you in case you can't see it in the back. The quality of civilization can be measured through its music, dance, drama, architecture, visual art, and literature. We must give our children knowledge and understanding of civilization's most profound works. And that's what we're charged with, and that's what drives me every day and gets me up in the morning, because this is incredible work that we get to do. And this is the work of Ms. Peterson and her kindergarten and first grade students at J.E. Moss Elementary. This was prior to the opening of the exhibit. They were so inspired hearing that this exhibit would be opening and loving the work of Eric Carle that they put together a fabulous exhibition and a display in their hallways. And it's just amazing to see. I think my whole life going into schools, one of the first things I can tell it's a great, welcoming, wonderful school is when you see student artwork festooned around the school. And it's not just bare white walls, but you see so many wonderful pieces of artwork. Arts integration is something that was mentioned earlier, and I just want to quickly define it. This is the Kennedy Center's definition. And it states it's an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. And my co-panelists present a lot of wonderful things, and I love in particular some of the words that have already been shared around inquiry and creativity and exploration and all the opportunities to develop connections for kids. And just seeing that picture of the student who walked through the exhibit extending their arms to be with the butterfly is the more ways that we can make things kid-friendly and accessible to them is terrific. And my hat's off to the Frist Art Museum for having this exhibit that's so welcoming. My kids loved it, and they love ArtQuest upstairs too. I can never drag them away from that, so thank you. We received a grant a few years ago. It's a $1.3 million grant approximately, actually $1.2 million grant, to partner with the Frist Arts Museum and our Arts Impact and Quaver Music to be able to provide professional development. And so for the past few years, this is now year 3, and next year will be year 4, we've been partnering to provide visual thinking strategies and professional development for all of our elementary art educators. In the end, it will be 55 Title I elementary schools, so we will be impacting thousands and thousands and thousands of students. So I briefly wanted to share a couple of wonderful updates on that work, and there it is, the slide on our visual thinking strategy. Let me get to my notes so I don't forget. So this grew out of research by a cognitive psychologist, Abigail Housen, and working in collaboration with a museum educator, they created a way, a method that was inquiry-driven to be able to teach visual literacy. And so we've been very excited to partner with the Frist Art Museum and Arts Impact to be able to develop this, and our teachers, and they have loved it. It's really transformed their classrooms. And so we asked students, as part of this process, we asked them, what's going on in this picture? What do you see? And how we can dig in as we ask them more questions related to the pictures that they see. And you see some other questions on the right. What more can you find? What do you see that makes you say that? We need to constantly ask students. I need to ask my own children when they come home, how was your day at school? Good. What made it good? It was okay. Well, okay, let me tell you. And then suddenly the floodgates open. So we always have to think about how are we asking children and really eliciting from them a response about what is it that they see? I am always fascinated by what our children see in different pieces of art. So there I am with Allison Ross. I want to give her credit for putting together several of these slides, along with Angela Negleri, who is one of our fantastic elementary art educators. We presented at the Arts and Education Conference in October, held in Washington, D.C., along with many others. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Education, and so we're very thankful for the U.S. Department of Education support and federal funding to make these kind of programs possible, because we need to continue to provide these opportunities for educators to learn and grow. So 2 very quick things that we've shown that are positive. I'm sorry to be the data person at the end, but then we'll get to the panel. It's important to be able to show outcomes. I want to share this with you. This is amazing. 88% of students who have been participating in Cohort 1 the first year have reported positive creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. We talk about those as 20th century or 21st century skills that we're trying to develop in our students. Sometimes people refer to them as the soft skills. And how are we encouraging them to continue to develop as students? By learning these skills in and through the arts. And then we also saw that our visual art teachers reported huge growth, and we saw huge growth over the course of the first year in their knowledge of their content area and of this work and using visual thinking strategies. So we're seeing tremendous growth. The teachers love it, but the important thing is, do the students love it? And so I'm going to show you a few pictures of some other work that's been going on in the classrooms and show you some before and after images. We adopted this year something called Discussions for Learning, which is a way of connecting paintings, famous paintings and pieces of art, and modern photographs of different places around the world to vocabulary and language acquisition. It's especially wonderful for our English language learners. Right now in our district, 26% of our students are English language learners, and they come from all over the world. In fact, we have the largest population of Kurdish students, and we just recently added it several months ago as a language to be offered in our schools. So we are a very diverse population. That's what is so beautiful about our school system in our city. So we're very excited to have this opportunity to use Discussions for Learning in the classroom and to show a lot of change and transformation in our students, and to be able to elevate both the visual arts standards and the ELA standards, English Language Arts, because we know many of our students throughout our school system are struggling with learning language, not only because they might have come from another country, but students who were born here in our own country who are struggling with how to learn to read and write, and that's critically important for our students. This is just one example of one of the pieces of art, Autumn of the Rooster. And you can see on the right, it then gives the teacher ideas around lessons. How can they teach and share a variety of vocabulary, some higher order questioning techniques and skills, and eliciting response through this inquiry process with their students, and providing opportunity for all of the students to participate, not just one or two, but a lot of the students. So this is a before. So you can see, look at the picture on the top, look at this actually, that might have been my son a few years ago. So they're a little tired. They're not as engaged in the lesson. Some of them are focused. You see a few students in the front. There's something to be said for sitting in the front because the teacher's right there and can make that eye contact and have proximity. But then after using these strategies, you see, wow, hands are up. They're ready to ask questions. They're ready to answer questions that the teacher has been asking them. They're highly engaged in this and learning it. I think one of the important things, and we focus on a lot, is student voice in our classrooms and less teacher talk. Sometimes as teachers, and I was guilty of this in my first few years as teachers, we talk too much, and we need to let the students talk and the students share and the students learn through that process. And there you can see the before and after shots. Okay, Johnny's kind of leaning back. Now he's got the hand raised. So they're very highly engaged through this process. And finally, I'm very excited that this year, thousands of our students are getting to come to the Frist Art Museum and see their wonderful exhibitions. That has been an opportunity in the past. We've had partnerships and many students visiting, but now this year we have a new program called the STEAM Expeditions Program. And this year, one of the pieces on the right that they'll get to see, the fourth graders will view this piece by J.M.W. Turner quest for the sublime. And so every one of our students in 18 STEAM middle schools and almost about a dozen of our elementary schools will have 1 to 2 cultural enrichment field trips for this year through the STEAM Expeditions program. So they're going to museums, they're going to the symphony, they are seeing the opera, Nashville Opera. It's actually coming to one of our high schools, and students are going there to see wonderful opera. So this is a wonderful opportunity for them to learn science, technology, arts, math, and engineering. So we're excited to have this partnership, and thankful again to the Frist Art Museum. And if you wish to reach me, there I am. I'm a social media person, so if you look for our website and information, Arts Move MMPS or Music Makes Us. And that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. So thank you to the panelists, and they all stayed on time. So I'm really super grateful for that, because one of the charges that Gail always gives us is to leave time for questions and for interaction. And I think Jeff actually mentioned that too, that as a teacher, you tend to talk too much and not listen. So we do want to invite you all to ask questions. I'll ask a couple of questions just to get us started and give you a moment to think, but Megan will bring the microphone around and share that so we can hear all of your questions. I just want to say thank you again to Jeff, especially for Metro's support in helping the Frist really bring about a practical application of the 21st century learning skills. The partnership that we have through this professional development for the art teachers is really about stressing critical thinking, about creativity, collaboration, and communication, and those are things that the Frist Art Museum is very dedicated to. So we appreciate Jeff's support in making this all happen, which has been really fantastic. But I would like to maybe push out a question to Justine and Jeff to talk a little bit, because we are, I feel like, perhaps singing to the choir, or Jeff might sing to the choir. He said he might do that. But singing to the choir that you all are here because you see the value of creativity and the arts in learning. But we also know that within our school systems that we are very much focused on standard-based testing. And we often hear yet again another test, another test, another test. And so maybe just to talk, Jeff and Justine, a little bit about how do we begin to turn this needle from such standard-based curriculum into more of the arts integration and creativity that we know really works, and what are either strategies or things that are actually happening.
So actually this is interesting because Jeff and I were speaking just before we started about this very topic, the idea of product-centered teaching over process-centered teaching. So a product-centered teaching would focus on a test, would teach to the test, would prepare for the test for many months, and the teaching would revolve around what would be on the test. And process-centered learning would have nothing to do with that. And process-centered learning from the system that I taught for 12 years in began with what students were interested in, what students wanted to learn about, and the teachers were flowing as facilitators around that learning. They were a guide on the side as well as being a sage on the stage. This is a term that teachers use. It doesn't mean that there was chaos happening in the classroom. The teacher was still facilitating. But in much the same way that an orchestra conductor conducts the orchestra, the conductor never faces the audience, doesn't try to get any of the accolades for the clapping. It's all the musicians who are playing. And that's kind of the system that I grew up in and taught in for over a decade. So my philosophy is more process-centered. And so when I see schools and I hear about from my students now at Vanderbilt, many of my students are in placements, when they tell me that fourth grade classrooms are preparing for the writing standards that are on the test in May in October, I find that really troubling. And it's disheartening for me on many levels, including the fact that writing is so much more than just writing an answer to a preset test question. And so if we have a single right answer mentality, if we expect that there ever could be one answer that goes in a box, I guess my nudging and my heightening for that would be to say to educators and parents and just people who care about the world that there are many right ways to do everything. And so if we start education from that standpoint, that there isn't a single right answer to so many things, then I think we can start stepping away from this test-oriented mentality.
Yeah, there's a lot. I could speak for a few days. Having been in arts education for many years and an advocate for this work, one of the videos I love, of course, is Sir Ken Robinson's How Schools Kill Creativity. And I think that word creativity, I think one of the things I will say that one of the dangers we have in arts education is that sometimes some of us advocate and say creativity only lives in the arts classroom, and that's not true. Creativity needs to live in every classroom. And I think one of the refrains I heard when I was a teacher years ago for those 12 years, as testing continued, high-stakes testing continued to grow and that developed, is teachers would say to me, I used to do X, Y, Z, and it was so exciting and engaging, and I loved it, and it was project, and my students missed that, and they just had this sense of remorse and loss to not be able to do that. So I think what keeps me up at night is thinking, are we doing right by all of our students? Are we really reaching all of our students? Are we helping them reach their fullest potential? Are they having the opportunity for discovery and to create? And is it okay to make mistakes? Yes. And that's something we always need to teach students. There is no one right answer, and that's unfortunately the danger of focusing exclusively on testing in our high-stakes testing culture. I think the process, if Allison Ross were here, one of the things she always jokes with me is it's not about creating a Pinterest project. So if I walk into a kindergarten classroom and all the penguins are facing to the left, and they all look exactly the same, an administrator might walk in, or someone from the community might walk in and say, that looks nice. But was each student allowed to be creative? Did they experiment? If this penguin is looking the other way and looks completely different shades and colors, that's the beauty of...
Yeah, why do they all have to be penguins?
And why do you even have to be? Here's my interpretation of a penguin. So
could it be a seal? What other animals could be there?
What other an otter or something else? So I think we need to continue to provide space, and that's part of what's about space, and to value the opportunity for students to learn and fail and learn and grow as individuals, because we're not educating robots, we're educating human beings. We're educating human beings who have amazing capacity to do things. And that's one of the things I always talk about with educators. Your students can do anything. It's not just those students over there who are doing those amazing creative things. Your students can do that. And if we believe that in our hearts, then we can continue to shift that. And so what I would just say, and now I'll get off my soapbox, is you as community members, as taxpayers, you can continue to advocate for and encourage the development of creativity and the strong place for all the academic subject areas to be taught, and to allow for that space wherever possible, because it's transformative for our students and really changes their lives. One of my best colleagues always said to me, the arts saved me, literally saved him, and changed his life and shifted from a path that he could have gone down. And so I think we need to provide those opportunities for creativity, again, in every classroom. And that's the beauty and value of arts integration. My hope would be, as we continue to develop our partnership and partnerships with others and complete our strategic plan that's due in March, we will foster this in every classroom in the city. I'm excited about that.
That's great. Well, we're excited for what you're doing, Jeff, in Metro Schools. So I want to open if there are questions. No. So one of the things, Jeff, you mentioned is the creativity and changing how people see their worlds through art, and certainly that's our vision here at the Frist Art Museum, and having the Eric Carle exhibition here is one of those wonderful opportunities to really do that. So we definitely see young learners engaging in that visual arts and just the power of that, and I know Justine has seen it in her classroom, as well as I think seeing pre-service teachers, right? Students who are in in the university learning to be teachers. And so maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing to encourage that. So because I feel like for me it's really important that we change we always talk about the pipeline. Where are we getting teachers, and how do we change pre-service teaching so that we can begin to make this impact in the classroom?
So this is the work that I'm doing right now. Working with pre-service teachers and Master of Elementary Education students to help them to integrate the arts into their classroom. So Jerome Harsty is a researcher, and he says language arts, as we call it, really only focuses on language. It totally forgets that arts part. And I'll add to what he said by saying that I sort of wish that our subjects were called language arts, social studies arts, science arts, math arts, and that we had to honor that art word in it, and that it was something that was embedded in what we do. Jeff and I were talking before we started again, and one of the things that I often hear from educators is there's not enough time for the arts. There's just too much that I already have to do. And so I challenge people who say things like that to think of the arts not as one extra, but as the suitcase that you hold everything else in. When drama and music and creativity in the way that Jeff has described is embedded in who you are and your philosophy of education, it's not one extra, it's the way that you do things. And so that's what Maxine Green talks about in her work. She's a researcher from Teachers College in New York. And she says that often education systems are ones where we ask a question we know the answer for, and we get the answer, and then we move on. And we ask another question that we know we want the answer for, and we move on. And these sorts of systems create in classrooms students who are obedient and do what their teacher wants them to do. It doesn't create critical literacy. So what I often teach, and what is part of my philosophy at Vanderbilt, is helping my pre-service and in-service teachers to think about ways that they can use the arts to help children critically think and not accept a story as an end point, but rather to see a story as the beginning. So I'll give you an example. 10 Little Rubber Ducks by Eric Carle is this magical story about these rubber ducks that get knocked off a ship, and then they all go on different journeys. And this is something that I share with my pre-service teachers. On Monday morning when the children came into class, we had a video announcement from my dad, who was pretending to be somebody who worked on the cargo ship. And my dad said to the kids, "Oh no, there was another whole box of little rubber ducks that fell off the ship and we don't know where they went. Can you help us find out?" And then all of my children in the class got a little rubber duck. They embodied the story that they wanted to tell about where the ducks went. They all created new stories about where the ducks went. And so this is how we look at a text critically, and we say, what other story might exist here? How can I retell that story? In what form will I tell it? And how does it make me think about the world differently? And so those are kind of the things I'm working on right now with the teachers and thinking about the pipeline to the classroom, hoping that they can look at, rather than saying, what script exists for me to teach from? So there are all these mandated scripts that teachers are meant to use. I'm saying, keep the script in your room so you don't get in trouble from your administrators. But I want you to think for yourself, because the only way we can breed a culture of children to think for themselves is if our teachers are also doing that.
Yeah, I think that was beautifully said. I like the suitcase. I might borrow that one. I haven't heard it said quite that way before. Yeah, I think the teacher pipeline is incredibly important, because if the educators coming out of our higher education institutions have been trained and supported and grown in how to build creativity in the classroom and how to integrate the arts, then we'll see it in classrooms. And then as a district, if we continue to foster that and support that work, then we'll also see shifts and change. My daughter is in middle school. I have 3 kids. And her favorite teacher, quite honestly, one of her favorite teachers is the ELA teacher, because every day she comes home and she says it's fun. But what she's really saying is it's engaging, it's rigorous, it's project-based, and they're working on creative projects to help her shift her mindset and how she thinks about what they're learning. So she's learning throughout the process, but sometimes she doesn't realize she's learning because she's having so much fun. She's so engaged. And so we need to continue to allow that and that creativity and that multidisciplinary study and not silo, which is a danger sometimes in education of just shutting the classroom door and thinking, I just do this, that's why I focus on, rather than really seeing it as a holistic approach in how are we educating the whole child.
Are there questions?
Thank you. I think what you're doing is fabulous, all of you. I have a question about, in the programs that you're initiating in the school system, are you also educating, I assume this must come with it, the teachers and the principals, and trying to really, get rid of some of the resistance to this?
So I'm doing some research here on critical literacy and drama and MNPS right now, and I'm selecting schools based on principals. So after meeting them and seeing their philosophy of education and that they're accepting of these ideas, that would really help me know that this will be a school where I have principal support. And then another thing that we've been talking a lot about is something where teachers opt in. So we're not making anybody do anything, but hopefully the work that we're doing will gain steam and people will be very excited about it and more teachers would opt in.
I like how you said gaining steam. That was great. That was good. Good segue to those STEAM programs we have in the school. I think part of it is, and Justine was saying this, you get those initial buy-in, those early adopters who really believe in it, and then when everyone sees, wow, look at what the students look like in that classroom. Look at what they're doing. And then when they, getting back to the process piece, when they see and visit and observe and see what it looks like, that's what starts to change hearts and minds. So yes, part of my work is educating not only the children but the adults in the room, and that's a continual ongoing process to show how can this really move the needle and shift things for your students, and capturing those testimonials from both students, teachers, and administrators about how it is changing their classrooms and their schools.
I think Justine makes a really good point, and we have discussed this among ourselves, that it's really more impactful when the teachers can opt into the professional development. And I will say that the grant we have with Metro for professional development for art educators, Jeff mentioned, is targeted to the 55 Title I elementary schools. So in reality, those teachers did not have an option to opt in. They were a little bit forced into it because they had requested a desire for professional development, but maybe not thinking about it exactly in this way. So that has been, I will say, a learning curve for us in working with these art educators in the classroom, is helping them to see what Justine has articulated and Jeff articulates as the importance of how much more your students can learn if you look at teaching in a new and different way of really engaging them. And so that is a whole circle effort, I think, within our community. It also filters here to when we're showing our art exhibitions. What are we choosing to do? How are our docents who are volunteers, who are learning about the exhibitions, teaching to the kids so that we are reinforcing what is happening in the classroom and all of these things that are connected together. So it is a whole circle and a whole community event that's required, I think, to move the needle and to make it happen. So, good. Yeah. Megan, Jen.
I'm very excited about public school is doing integration, but I'm a TA at a TPAC, and they have been doing art integration for a long time. I wonder if you have connection with, I'm the TA, but I'm not administrator over there. Do you have connection with a TPAC, art integration, professional development?
So yes, one of the things that TPAC offers, they have a large teaching artist roster, is the Wolf Trap Early Learning Institute, which has been around for a number of years, so helping in the pre-K and early childhood space to foster that. And in fact, our pre-K educators, I would say, of any educators who are classroom teachers, are probably the best at arts integration, because we don't have teachers assigned, except in a few schools, to teach art and music separate from theirs. So they are integrating it regularly, and they have, they're teaching arts through Disney musicals in schools, and through our work on they have a host of programs. I do, full disclosure, serve on their board, so they are good partners with our school district and offer that opportunity. And quite honestly, we can't, this is another thing I would say, we can't as a school district do everything. We need the community. It takes all of us working together. We need families, we need community members, we need retirees who can help. We need all of our partners at the Frist Art Museum, TPAC, and a host of others. We can't do it all. We really need working together collaboratively with collective impact. That's how we start to see the shift. So yes, they're great partners in this work as well.
My personal experiences as artists, and then we go into the classroom and try to use inquiry, try to create critical thinking. Actually, it's hard. You have to let them speak, and then you pull from what they have talked, and then try to deliver what you want to teach, but you cannot tell them what you want to teach. And I think it requires some training there.
You have hit the nail on the head. Inquiry-based learning in Ontario, where I'm from, kindergarten teachers, you have to teach for every grade level before you can be qualified to teach in kindergarten. And then you have to take several hundred hours worth of PD, professional development, for the very reason that you just said. It's special kindergarten training to learn how to have an inquiry mindset and to allow what children do to be the focus. We're in a mentality where teachers will, again, have that script. And they have the long-range plan, the whole year set out before the first day ever happened. So all that training that they do where I'm from, it happens as a precursor because they know how hard it is for the very reasons that you said. It's a mindset thing. So you have to think about the pedagogical values of the teacher, the mindset of the teacher, and all of that helps for teachers then to be able to enter the classroom and let go a bit.
And how are we not inserting our own opinions and ideas as adults? So, and that's really hard sometimes. I remember there was an art educator, not in our district, but somewhere else in the past I worked with, who would touch up their students' work before it was displayed. And when I learned of that, I immediately had a conversation and said, no, it's not your artwork, it's theirs. Yeah. And that's why people will walk by and say, wow, that's amazing work for a first grader. I'd say, yeah, that wasn't a first grader. So how are we, that's where we need to allow kids to be kids and to discover and to create. And that's the beauty of it. And they grow, and there are stages in the process, just like the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. That's our children. That's the embodiment of who they should be able to be.
Great. I think, was there another question over here? This is the last question, Gail's telling me, yes. Was there another question? No? Maybe not? Okay, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you all. I think, this is so important and so dear to our hearts, so dear to the Frist Center for the, Frist Art Museum. And I think it's very important to our community. We are known as Music City. We want to be known as Music and Art City, and that it encompasses creativity in many forms and many ways. So thank you all for being here, for supporting creativity and supporting this conversation.